I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Detrick. Jordan Redaelli is on vacation. Andrew Kuo is here and takes no days off. Andrew, is your mask on?
My mask is on. I'm ripped. I've been working out nonstop. It's like a real prison up in here.
It's great to hear.
I'm giving myself stick and pokes. I'm forming alliances with inanimate objects in the house, and I'm running this shit, Ben.
Well, what are you supposed to do? Like the first day in quarantine, you punch yourself in the face.
Make me ugly.
That's how you earn respect from yourself in the yard.
Yeah, you don't beat up or confront the scariest inanimate object in your house. Yeah, you do.
You find the biggest, scariest version of yourself, beat the shit out of yourself, wake up with full respect.
I realize the most valuable thing I have in my house is my Dyson vacuum cleaner, kind of. I mean, computer, yes. The laptop is super valuable, but now that everything is in the cloud, I'm like, well, is the cloud, is the laptop just a vessel for the cloud? Anyway, but if someone was going to drop in, I'd be like, please, don't take my Dyson.
Yeah, I feel like breaking and entering is still happening, obviously. Like, it is down days for the B&E craft right now. Just because people are home.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I cat burgled my way in. So I'm like, dude, I'm right here.
Although,
I
in
can't
Manhattan,
leave.
no one's home. Everyone's gone to Long Island.
So at least Target, you're breaking and entering.
Midtown. Downtown, for that matter.
Williamsburg condos.
Oh, man. This is the golden age for B&E.
I spoke too soon. The glory days.
We workshopped it, man.
Of a good old-fashioned B&E.
I mean, even if the alarm goes off, like, what alarm company is staffed right now, right?
Cops aren't coming.
Donovan
Lawless
Mitchell
society.
ain't walking through that door.
So, I'm with you, though, because if someone robbed me, same thing. Like, what are you getting away with? There's no jewelry.
Jewelry's...
There's no stacks of cash. I'm trying to think of what, the Beverly Hills Bandits were stealing. They were stealing jewelry and expensive items. Like, I don't know what you'd get from me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, TVs are cheap now.
This wine is cheap.
Yeah, these aren't expensive bottles of wine.
Tasty,
though.
though.
But TVs are cheap. And, like, I was stunned going to price flat screen TVs. You're like, so it's like 50 inches for $160. Like, yeah, sure, whatever, take it.
Yeah, technology has bottomed out the TV market. It's like the Twilight Zone for B&E, the B&E crew, because it's like, you're telling me in 2020 the TVs are going to look better and be flat, and I can run out with a TV, a 40-inch TV just by myself? Let's go. And it's like, but they're only $1,000. Like, wait, what? Resale, they're like $300. I'm like, huh?
Right, the cliche of the breaking and entering scheme going back like the 70s and 80s. It was one, cars, where people were running off with your stereo system.
Sounds ridiculous now.
Like,
but
someone
yes.
smashed my window and took my tape deck.
Oh, I got one of those tape decks where I can take the face off, so no one's taking that. Like,
That's true.
People had them in their like breast pockets in the club. Yeah, what do you take from a 2020 house? Because computers are valuable, but they're passworded and everything's in the cloud, and all the apps that you have on it, whatever, are service based, so you can log in wherever. So if you zap your computer, you just have the machinery, which is worth something for sure, but that would be the first thing you go for, jewelries, if people are still into that. And then are you looking around for a Dyson? You can't.
I think you're mostly looking for vacuum cleaners.
Yo, they're so cool. My Dyson is awesome, but it's very dirty.
Quo, you don't know who's listening to this.
Right.
Someone might be targeting you for your Dyson.
It's a very dirty item in my house, but its service to my apartment has been unprecedented.
I would guess that people's phones are worth, on average, twice as much as anything in their house that is stealable.
Could be, but now that Apple's dropping that $400 phone, it bottomed out its own market.
What is a thief to do?
What is a thief to do? Because you can't even take artwork. You can't resell that stuff.
You don't have a fence?
What's
What's the VIG?
Like, would it be... I'm trying to think of, like, the most, like, dried mushrooms. I don't know, like, the perfectly marinated chicken in my fridge. I'm like, yo, please don't take that.
Someone kicked open my door and took my saffron.
Is it, like, vintage teas? Like, yo, look at this Tupac rap tee, man. That goes for, like, $75 on the open market.
I don't know. We just do not live in an age of investing into possessions.
No, and maybe furniture, right? Maybe a couch, maybe a armoire.
Hey, man, if someone wants to steal this credenza
Yeah,
and get it down the stairs,
get at it.
That is a dedicated breaking and entering her.
It is the golden age for breaking and entering, but it's the dark ages for the return. So it levels out to another Tobias Harris situation. Thanks for the perfect pod.
Right, like you can get into an apartment.
Yeah.
Like that's not the challenge. You can get your way into an apartment, but there's absolutely nothing there.
I remember when I was in college, I lived in a kind of a rough town. Providence was not safe then, and all my friends would get...
Crime town?
Yeah, that was a crime. Cianci. Cianci was our guy. I used to buy his tomato sauce right next to Rick Pitino's sauce. But my friends would get burgled, and and they would be like, yo, if like a bunch of like Japanese noise records pops up in the thrift store, can someone like come to my studio and let me know? This is pre-cell phones too. It's like, oh yeah, if a bunch of boredom CDs or vinyl ends up in the local thrift shop, we know that all your records are there. And those were the most valuable things we had as, college kids. Guitars, there's always amplifiers, that kind of stuff. But as a grown-ass man, like, I don't got no guitars that I care about. I'm like, you took my guitar. There goes my dreams of being in a jazz band.
Well, the biggest problem is that there's nothing of value to take. And then when you get to the street, everybody's wearing a mask. It's the perfect getaway. Like, this should be ideal. It is the easiest time ever to escape. You run out in a surgical mask.
Yo, sounds like the cops are coming for you right now. You better get out there.
Yeah, they're pretty close, I gotta be honest.
You're not even in your own place right now. Whose place are you in right now, Ben? Potting technology.
I'm rummaging through cabinets for Saffron.
Yeah, I would definitely take the reproductive organ of a flower.
So anyway, now that there's masks all over the place, you were wearing a mask to begin with. You were early, and you were a mask hipster.
I was wearing masks before they were cool. No, I was not. But this is all... Everything that we think is going to happen, that we push back on, is going to happen, right? Like, it's like you can go outside and maybe have lunch with somebody 6 feet away. Like, you can't do that anymore. It's like you have an option of wearing a mask or not. You're going to have to wear them. Like, all these things is just a matter of time. And I wanted to wear a mask because it made a lot of sense. So I just did it. But now, your boys made it mandatory. The mask cops have rained their judgment down.
I'm fine with the mask. It's for other people's safety. Cool.
Yep.
I have no objection to it. I wear one. It's all good. I will say, driving by Hasidic neighborhoods again, no masks. Like, I mean, I mentioned this a little while ago, but Man, no masks. Just groups of guys rolling around. Not one mask. No, I saw one mask. And also, if there's anything about the novel coronavirus, COVID-19 fiasco, it's that it has validated my long-held belief that joggers are sociopaths. And yes, we have called for the arresting of joggers, and that is fair. And I'm making citizens arrests, yes. But they're still doing it, even today, when we're supposed to be wearing masks by, what is it, gubernatorial decree.
You say that with such disdain that I can never hear those words again. Oh, your gubernatorial obligations.
They're still running down the sidewalks, panting like animals without masks on. Like, you are sociopaths. We pretended you were just misunderstood or, oh, there's a disconnect. It's like, no, you're actually sociopaths. You are running down heavily trafficked streets, exhaling.
Like a cartoon dog.
Disgusting.
We
know this now. Joggers actually are sociopaths. We knew they were like narcissists. We knew there was something weird about them and their just disregard for other people's space. They know that people are irritated and this is irking and worrying other people in their neighborhood, and they're doing it anyway. Like, they're fucking nuts, and I hate them. I'm sorry. And I don't have nothing against jogging as a exercise, but joggers are psychos, and it has been proven, and it is now a matter of public record.
It's funny to hear joggers talk about how working out is an addiction, and then having them talk about not working out in a time like this as if they were addicts, like drug addicts. Where like, no, I need to do it. I know it's against the rules, but I have to get it in. Can I just get it in, and then you can yell at me later? I'm gonna have to do it tomorrow again, and then the day after, and the day after that. I'm like, oh yeah, you're fully addicted to this thing. And
but that's cool. Like, I'm addicted to playing basketball. I just can't do it right now. I also can't do it on the sidewalk. Look, I don't want to reiterate our whole arrest all joggers, which is very true and holds up. It holds up. It was at least a week ago and still holds up.
Yeah.
But, like, man, it is clear that people who jog, a lot of them, there is something wrong with them. They are not regular people. They are not the kind of people who can play a team sport. They jog in your way because, like, they are addicted to it, and you can't tell them to do it differently. You can't say, go to a park. You can't say, go to a jogging path. You can't say, jog in the street. They're like, no, I'm not going to wear a mask, and I'm going to jog on the sidewalk on a heavily populated sidewalk because I want to do that. Oh, you're a sociopath. Congrats.
Yeah, I want to be mad at joggers, but I just can't. I can't get there, but I am annoyed at people who don't follow rules. But also, it quickly comes back to, like, whatever you got to do, you can do, and this is a weird time, so you got to figure it out. But I think
I'm very forgiving. I'm just saying, joggers' just dismissal of everyone else's discomfort with their presence or doing anything a little bit inconvenient to them. We're not saying don't jog. We're not saying stay in your house. We're not saying anything other than don't jog around without a mask down sidewalks where other people are walking around. And they're like, I'm going to do that.
I mean, I think anyone with horse blinders on is frustrating. A few weeks ago, before the mandatory mask thing, I was in the supermarket and some guy was on his earbuds and talking to his friend about, like, some drama he was having, and, like, being funny and speaking loudly, and you know, spit was probably flying everywhere. And 3 months ago, I would not have cared. I would have even tried to eavesdrop and see if I can get a joke in there or two, or listen to a joke or two. But then when I saw him doing that, I was like, yo, man, not only is that uncool, that's just like a blatant fucking middle finger. Like, do your shopping and talk to your homie, like, later, you know? Like, you're in a tight supermarket aisle talking about a bad date, which is funny. But I think, like, anybody who is kind of giving you a little what do they call it when French people like rub the bottom of their chin?
Oh, a little je ne sais quoi.
It is a je ne sais quoi. Definitely, that is a right answer. But whatever that is, I'm like, well, I feel like maybe you don't care about me as much as I thought you did.
Yeah, when I was in the supermarket, and we all view that situation as being, if not harrowing, of being aggravating, of being something you don't enjoy doing. And there was a group of 3 people who were in there today as a group, walking around without masks, despite the fact there was a sign that said, wear a mask inside, despite the gubernatorial decree. And if they weren't like social distancing at all. You know, they were just standing next to each other, acting normal. And maybe they're housemates, whatever. But, you know, to flagrantly ignore the social distancing, and again, maybe you guys all live together. Like, you are now one unit. You're a pod.
Were
whatever.
they young?
Yeah, they were fairly young. But to not wear masks in that situation, in a crowded-ish supermarket, that's, you know, you're like, to your point, you're just not thinking about other people.
No. And
this isn't about like, oh, you're going to get sick. You're just not thinking about even the sort of vibes, because people were looking at them like, what's going on here? Why is this group just walking around like normal? Like, yeah, grab some potatoes. And you're like, wait, you know, we've collectively decided we're not doing that right now.
Yeah, I hate that. Like, I was waiting online, and a person in front of me, one of those young bucks like Joe Biden, just like throwing their youth in my face, like kind of like thought I was too close and gave me a look, and I stepped back. You know, maybe I was too close. And then they sneezed, and everyone looked at them. I'm like, I hate all of this. It was just a sneeze. You know, like, they're not wearing a mask. That sucks, but I am, so someone should be able to sneeze 6 feet from me.
But that's not really the case, though, right? Because the issue here is that the masks are to prevent people from coughing or sneezing and ejecting their particles.
Yes.
That the rule for masks is not to protect the wearer.
Yes, it's to keep it in, to keep it near close.
So that was why I was irritated at this group of people in the supermarket, is because, like, I'm not really scared, man. I would go in there without a mask. It's not doing shit for me.
Right.
It's for other people. It's for their state of mind that I'm not going to cough and they'll have to freak out. It's for them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not scared either. You know, I'm not here huddling behind my beautiful Kalina Strata floral print mask due to fear. It's for other people. Yeah,
and the main problem is, as I'm like a dingus, I watch all these press briefings, and every day they're like, so many masks. Oh my God, we're talking like millions of masks, guys. And I'm like, well, can we get them into people's faces? Like, so instead of us kind of doing the peer pressure thing, which I think this is all about, right? Like, instead of a place being like everyone should wear a mask, there should be a box of masks outside being like, take a mask if you don't have one.
But my thing is that, like, we're pretty acclimated to no shorts, no shoes, or what? No shirts, no shoes,
service.
No service. You know, like,
yeah, we get that.
Like, you know, Arby's has had a dress code that we've had to abide by, and it's like,
sir, this isn't Arby's.
Shirts and shoes. It's not that hard. So, okay, to go into a supermarket right now, you got to wear a mask. Like, them's the rules, guys. And you're like, nah, I can't do it. I got to go. I can't wear a shirt. I can't put shoes on. This is a Burger King.
This is a deeply American thing, right? Like, me and you were talking about it. Our whole country is based off of revolting and turning against authority and this Paul Revere stuff. Even the Puritans who came over here on a ship being like, nah, we don't like your rules. We're going to start our own thing.
With even harsher rules.
Yes. That will just, like, crush your humanity slowly.
All you guys with all your dancing. We're sick of your rules. We're going to go somewhere and outlaw dancing.
Those sleeves are a little short on those arms, I would say. But, yeah, it's so American to be like, no, I don't think I should do that. And you see the countries that have, and this is a really loose idea, but you see the countries that have successfully flattened their curves, like Germany, some Asian countries like South Korea, China. And if you look at their history as a country, like in the last century, they maybe didn't get the better end of some major conflicts on a global scale. And their society every society behaves differently. But it's no surprise to me maybe that they were able to fall in line faster, and we as Americans, like, we have trouble with this concept of like, okay, you need permits for those guns. It's like, no, it's my constitutional right to wear this AK-47 on my chest at Walmart.
Excuse me, that's a Soviet-made weapon.
Oh, my bad. That is one of the most underrated players of all time on your chest, sir.
We're gonna need an AR.
Yes, right.
Something made around here.
Yeah, my gun vocabulary is terrible. Have you ever shot a gun, man?
Yes, but only in anger.
Only out of a generational spite.
Only out of fear and anger. No, I've shot guns when I was younger.
I would like to.
At targets. You can go to the gun range once those things are available.
I'd like to. I'm not against guns. I think it should be very hard to get one. But, guns are guns, and that's a whole nother debate. But I'm not surprised that there are people in your Wegmans being like, get over it, guys. I'm like, that's a very American thing.
So, speaking of this, we've been criticizing some individuals, and this has been a common sort of refrain on this show. It's like, there are people who are doing things that irk us, and they could improve their behavior. But it's also a larger failing. But now we're seeing sort of a merging of those two ideas, where you have a conservative movement that is deeply skeptical of this shutdown and the idea of opening up America again has become a rallying cry. So these individuals are starting to come together in protests, and they're going to, government offices, state capitals, city halls, to wave around Confederate flags and to scream about how they want to buy lawnmower equipment and new barbecues and how Ben Simmons needs to shoot threes. So we're seeing this, though, as a growing movement in America. What do you make of all this, Andrew Kuo?
I frame that outrage that we're seeing a little bit more now as our White House wanting to reopen the country and scientists perhaps wanting to wait a little longer. And this is an ideological debate that will last forever, right? This is the eye test versus stats. And what I mean by that is I can understand why people want to have a chance to pay their rent. Like, give me a shot. Let me open my business again. Let me open my hardware store. Let me open my, hair salon. All these things that kind of are necessary for sustainability as a human. Like, I do not want to miss a mortgage payment. I totally understand that. But a lot of this comes down to maybe not believing that this is a big deal and this is something like coastal elite cities have to deal with, but not red states. And, the numbers for places like Michigan are coming in now, and per capita, it's a big problem there. I believe they're the third worst per capita as of today, after New York or New Orleans. I forget. It keeps on changing. But this seems to be an ideological debate where it should be a scientific discussion.
Right, and you have figures in government like, what's his name, Ron DeSantis.
Your boy
guy.
Grayson Allen.
Huge Miami, big Miami Heat fan.
Yeah. Shout out to Chris Bosh, Duncan Robinson guy over here.
Who obviously deserves to be imprisoned for his behavior during this entire COVID crisis.
Baffling behavior.
Just murderous behavior.
Maybe, yeah.
And they're all of a sudden testing less and less people in Florida in order to apparently rig the numbers to make it look like the cases are going down.
Less stats. Let's stop keeping track.
Just wild behavior, man.
Kobe is the best, and now we're not keeping track of any scoring from now on.
And the bothersome thing is that I feel as if New York overall has done a good job, and we're hopefully getting some better numbers back because of the diligent efforts of the citizenry.
I disagree there, but we'll disagree about that forever. I think New York City is doing a bad to okay job.
I mean, I think right now New York is doing a far better job than it was. I mean, when they've looked back and said that perhaps almost 90% of the people that died were avoidable if they had just shut it down earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, we will disagree on this. I just cannot comprehend that you think that.
Oh, can you not?
I cannot comprehend.
There's like over 10,000 deaths.
No, but that's from before. That's what I'm saying. Is like.
I mean, we'll never know these stats, right? Because that was. But
I mean, I'm agreeing
yeah.
with you that if we had changed our behavior, and it had been via gubernatorial review and decree.
I love that word. I love it.
Earlier, a lot less people would have died.
Tom Goobs Liata.
I'm with you on that. I'm just saying, to say that like New York is not doing a good job right now, I just fully disagree with. They could have done better things along the way.
And they needed help. We needed help. And to say that New York isn't doing a good job, I'm saying the infrastructure wasn't there. And of course, we love the people in our hospitals. It's crazy to think about the capes that they have to put on for this stuff, but as a whole, like, we were partying for
that's what I'm saying.
weeks.
I disagree with this idea that like New Yorkers were not doing as they were told. Like, I don't think that really happened that much. There were people who were not social distancing when they were told, but once it was announced by like de Blasio that things were shutting down and Cuomo, those are the guys who deserve the blame. I can't look at New Yorkers and say, oh, people have just been disobeying left and right. Like, there are obviously villains here, like joggers. Of course. But overall, like, the shit's shut down. No one's out. People are not encountering a fraction of the amount of people that they were coming in contact with 2 weeks ago. It's just not happening.
Yeah, because I think we finally got it. And, like, there are no villains here. I think everybody did not want this to happen. I don't frame this as villainy. I frame this as, like, it took a little too long for our gubernatorial leaders to react, and fair enough. We're not scientists. We've never seen this thing, even though Kellyanne Conway has seen this 18 times before. But, like, I forgive everybody in this process, but also the other side of it, like locking down in the way China and South Korea did, is deeply not a part of our culture. So there is no answer here.
Oh, like we're in agreement. I'm just mostly defending like the people in New York who were not doing the wise things when we were not told to do the wise things. I'm just defending like, look, I thought those people were idiots on that 70-degree Friday who were going to bars and partying like things were normal. I think they were idiots.
Yeah.
But the city wasn't shut down. Like, it should have been shut down. They should not have been able to go to a bar or a restaurant or sit outside of a cafe and share vapes and air kiss. Like, people were dumb. But again, not on them, because people are dumb.
Right. It's like, it's asking too much of citizens to be scared. Like, you cannot... I don't want our leaders to scare us. Therefore, they should not scare people. And if people aren't scared, they will make decisions that don't really reflect a worst case scenario. And that's just human beings, man. And
well, I'm right. I'm saying let's compare this to basketball.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a pickup run, everyone's just kind of doing their own thing. Get the ball, dribble a little bit, hoist up a shot. Some guys take good shots. Some guys take terrible shots. Some guys play terrible defense. Some people never find someone that's open. Pickup ball, it's unstructured. It's garbage. It's sort of, it's water finding its own level. Like, all right, this guy's good, so he's going to get the ball here and shoot more. But that's why you have coaches. That's why you have stats. That's why you have teams to sort that out and come up with the best possible way of winning a game or running an offense or even an isolated possession. What are we going to do here? We're going to run a play. Mm-hmm. So when people heard about coronavirus, and they're just out there playing pickup ball, crossing over, taking some like throwing behind the back passes, chucking up a half quarter every now and then. Like we needed Brett Brown. We needed the firm hand of Coach Thibodeau
Oh, winning culture. Well, I agree with that analogy, and since we're a basketball pod, let's just bring it to the NBA. I think if you put our population, if you personify everything into the virus being one ISO player, maybe with the ball, and our population and our whole psyche as the defender, we're one-on-one with the clock winding down, and sure, we could stop like the chances of a very good shooter getting that shot is less than 50%. So the advantage is with our psyche, but we should have a better plan. It should be like we should switch the best defender onto them. We could, get the other person to have the ball. Like as a team, there has to be a better plan than like our best guy versus your best guy. And
dude, watch the games. No, but right. We didn't have a strategy. I'm absolving New Yorkers prior to lockdown of behavior that I found reprehensible and foolish. Just like on the court, a chucker, I might find them reprehensible and foolish. But it's a pickup game. I'm like, come on, dude. All of a sudden, we've got a scoreboard and coaches, and we're playing in uniforms.
Yeah.
Like, dude, what are you doing? Go sit on the bench. That's insane. You can't be chucking that up like that. Who do you think you are? DeMar DeRozan? Michael Jordan? Sit down. Josh Smith?
Same player. Yeah. I mean, I always bring this back to peer pressure because I think this is the biggest idea. And even in a team basketball concept or architecture, there is peer pressure there too. Being like, yo, dude, it's like Dion Waiters, you're not taking that shot. It's Melo's shot, even though like nerds would be like, well, actually, Dion Waiters would just do just as good as Melo. The peers on that team would be like, Melo's our guy, so you're not taking that shot. And when this thing first went down, we potted through. It's wild that we have an everyday recording of the way we were thinking, but I was thinking to give peer pressure a shot, and I was really scared about this virus. So I tried to pressure my peers into behaving like me, but what actually happened, thankfully, is they pressured me into changing my mind. So we ended up in the middle. So I was kind of upset at my peers for like just skedaddling out of town, getting into a car and like bringing a hypothetical virus to their parents. But they made me think in the middle again. They got me out of my zone, where now I think like people have to react to save their interests, and those interests are like emotional and family based, and you got to do what you got to do, and I am not one to argue with that.
I'll keep that in mind. So one casualty, if you will, of the novel coronavirus.
What? There hasn't been 18 of these? What does
COVID.
a novel mean? You mean like a longer short story? Is it like plus 100
I don't know.
pages?
That's getting real close to reading. So maybe I'll just ditch this whole novel coronavirus COVID-19 thing. I'm just trying to be a little more specific, just so people know I'm not talking about a different COVID. But one casualty has been Lucky Strike, a sort of popular restaurant in Soho that was one of Keith McNally's, signature spots.
31 years.
A long-standing restaurant. And McNally, if you do not know him, is one of the more famous restaurateurs of his generation. And we're talking about someone who has iconic restaurants and kind of created the idea of a sort of modern bistro or the brasserie in terms of like kind of pre-weathered looks and tiling and a lot of French influences and great lighting. And those restaurants are places like Minetta Tavern, Odeon, Balthazar, the Pastis, what else? Cherche Midi.
Cherche Midi.
Yeah, which closed down.
It's a new one, but closed down as well.
But anyway, yeah, he is a renowned restaurateur in New York City. And Lucky Strike is not going to reopen after 31 years. Give me a take on that, Kuo.
Well, even though you gave him a great setup, I think you even understated his importance. And I have a New York City bias because I grew up here, but he his vision of Balthazar alone kind of was so influential. It kind of dictated the way our like collective conscience thought about like a night out, a special holiday meal, a Saturday night, and it it trickled down to so much. I mean, I hate that idea, but it had so much influence that even the most modest of corner bistro type places adopted a lot of his like warm lighting, his tile work, the look of his bar was something that you kind of identified as New York City uniquely. The movie Eyes Wide Shut kind of had a Keith McNally feel to its entirety, and in my opinion, and I think his vision of this kind of dining, I think it's close to fine dining, but not quite, was such a joy. And when I found out years ago, when it was like all these restaurants like you mentioned, Odeon, Pastis, and Balthazar were one guy's vision, I was like, well, this guy's like Michael Jordan. Like,
when you look at him with restaurants, I think of him and like Serge Becker creating the same sort of impact on nightlife, and seeing those ideas as you described going around the world, and you see them generationally from New York to other cities to whether it's the suburbs, just these design ideas. But right, so I think you kind of nailed it when it's like, this is what a night out is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a paper menu with like wine circles on it and fry grease and a good burger and attractive people and good music and lighting in which make everyone looks fantastic. And
there's a beauty to it.
And it's an idea that of refinement and class, but without necessarily being stuffy.
Yeah, and class is important here, and I think like true fine diners who maybe are at a higher price point would eat at McNally restaurants, and people like me and you who can afford one of those every now and then would also eat at McNally restaurants. Like, that was the compromise, and we all wanted to eat there because it was such a beautiful night, and it was a declaration of like a treat, and that's hard to do.
And to the credit of his influences, it was very much the French aesthetic of, you go to an old school. Well, you go to an old school spot in Paris, and this is what they're like, and it goes from everything to like what the wait staff is wearing to the menu to the light. The lighting is so key on this. It really is. It's so crucial to making the whole thing work. But the very awesome. Old school spots in Paris, whatever it would be, like Cafe Lip or something like that. Like they're very much the same idea, and he really brought that to New York City that didn't necessarily have that because we're New York, we're not Paris.
It's so funny when they talk about prospective free agents coming to New York. We always joke about like Katz's Deli, the Empire State Building, Williamsburg, but what I should be saying is Balthazar. Like, Balthazar, I think, is one of the most famous New York City spots that we have, and it's funny you mentioned obviously it's a French restaurant, but my buddy Pascal has the best theory. Like, Paris was the cultural center of the world for a generation, and it shifted to New York because, in his opinion, it was the Museum of Modern Art that shifted the entire paradigm to New York City. So all the creatives were directed to America, and I love that idea, and it's interesting to see it kind of reciprocate in this restaurant, and in my opinion, its influence being French.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I call it Cafe Lip. It's actually Brasserie Lip, but go and look at photos of it. It will look very familiar because of that McNally aesthetic. And just as a total aside, before we talk about Lucky Strike specifically and some of those restaurants, I know that in terms of like the fashion world, we've seen a migration out of New York in recent years, where people are starting to show in Paris again. And there's actually been like this gravitational pull of Paris, especially for men's fashion. Like, men's fashion week here is nothing. No one cares. But in Paris, the one that's in June, it's packed. Everyone is out there. That's where you'll see, Virgil and Heron and GQ and everybody. That's what they care about now. So there has been a bit of a cultural swing back in some elements to sort of the Parisian side. But, okay, so Lucky Strike. How would you describe sort of the scene of Lucky Strike? Has it changed over the past, decade or so?
Yeah, I mean, I was just there recently, so I can definitely talk about this. There was a time when all the galleries were in Soho, especially close by, like Deitch Projects was very close for a decade. So Lucky Strike used to be popping. It would just be packed with cool people, young people, and it's a modest space. It's not huge. It's there's a extreme bottleneck right where the bathrooms are past the bar when you walk in, but it was awesome. We all went there, right? And then when galleries kind of moved out of Soho to Chelsea, I personally, and I feel like when I went down there, it wasn't the same clientele anymore. It was more of a local crew, which was still awesome, but it was a different demographic, especially economically, and I still liked it, but I didn't find it extraordinarily delicious. I thought it was a great place to get a beer at the corner of the bar, and it's right next to Toad Hall, so that block was kind of active. It was alive, and the food was good. It had that signature McNally feel of the warm lighting, the tight seating arrangements, your steak au poivre. They had hamburgers on English muffins that were really popular, and it was cool. But I didn't go there for the food. I went there because I was in the neighborhood and for the hang.
I agree. To me, it was not a place that I cared about the food. I usually got a burger.
They had English muffins, right? Am I making that up?
I think you're right. I've only been there once in the last, I would say, 2 years. It was not a place I went to frequently in recent history. One of my family members used to live down the block from there, so we would hang there. I like Toad Hall a lot, though.
Yeah, Toad Hall's awesome.
Toad Hall's a good bar.
It's an old school, dark, wooden vibe feel, but there's not really food there, right? It's for drinking and pool.
As far as I know, they might have crisps.
Oh no, the excellent party mix. They pride themselves because they mix all these Asian ingredients with peanuts and nuts. It's good.
Yeah, but Toad Hall, good bar. Not particularly cheap, but a nice divey bar in Soho. Just as a word to the wise, if you want to grab a drink back when life is normal again, really an aces spot. It could be for a date, it could be for a hang. It's a good New York City bar. But Lucky Strike's role shifted, and I know people are upset about it closing, but I don't know that people were really going there that much. It struck me a little bit of perhaps from McNally, who was suffering from corona himself and just got out of the hospital, and I think he avoided the ventilator, but his life was in jeopardy recently. It might be one of those things where they said this restaurant is not doing what it used to do. Why bother reopening it? I don't know if it was actually corona closed it, or this is a good time to close it.
I mean, he said upon the announcement of it closing that it hadn't made money in years, and he also said Cherche Midi, which he closed maybe last year, and Schiller's before that. It's those places made no money, and the only reason I kept them alive, it was because he liked them and he liked the staff. And if it broke even, shout out to Tobias Harris, it was okay for him to keep these places open because he was into the idea of restaurants and all the things that we want from a restaurateur. And that upset me because it was hard to get a table on a Friday or Saturday at any of these places. And they were popular, and on an off night, it was still crowded. these are successful businesses. And you touched on something when you were like, Toad Hall, great bar, kind of spendy, but it's worth it. I'm like, it is impossible to run a business in New York City post.
And also, just so people know what I'm like, it's not cheap. It's a dirt bar.
Yes.
It is a dive. It's not gross, but it is a dark dive bar with like a couple little TVs up there.
Colorful bartenders, like the service is gruff.
Yeah, it's a bit gruff. You have some kind of hard scrabble regulars, but I'm like, not cheap.
No,
might be $8 a pint.
Oh, absolutely. And mixed drinks like a martini, I don't know, like 15, 16, you know?
But yes, what you were saying about like Schiller's, this was a successful restaurant. You know, it was the cover of the book Lush Life, which was about a murder and the dynamics between gentrification and the projects in the Lower East Side and the police force. It was vaguely based on that situation where a woman was being robbed and wouldn't give up her purse and was shot on in the Lower East Side. But yeah, really, it was like a best-selling novel. But the cover of it is the restaurant Schiller's. And I don't know. I used to go to Schiller's quite a bit. I mean, I liked the garlic shrimp.
I was mad at Schiller's, man. I did not enjoy Schiller's. I thought the food was not good. The clientele sucked.
That was me.
I said the clientele sucked. No, but it was like, I mean, get off my lawn. But it was when all those condos went up in the Lower East Side, and, you know, joke's on me because it's their neighborhood now. But it wasn't the hang that like maybe I thought Pastis was back in the day. I don't even know if that was
I did not find Schiller's a good place to hang either. I went there with people who knew like the owners after playing basketball. That was like a typical hang for us. Like get sweaty, have a couple beers, eat some greasy snacks. That was our sort of Schiller's utility.
Yeah. I thought like his like the vision of these restaurants is different than, let's say, like a Danny Meyer, where he's like, I think Danny Meyer's is all about like checking off boxes, like an Indian restaurant, a pizza spot, a burger spot, and McNally was pretty singular in his vision. Like there is differences between Minetta Tavern and Odeon, but it has the same foundation of, you know, French, like butter, burgers, fish, and Schiller's kind of was so boring to me, especially when it was close to so many more interesting restaurants.
Yeah, I don't think Schiller's captured that same like fries and a martini vibe. It had a nice bathroom downstairs, but the rest of it didn't
crushes
match
the
up.
bathroom.
It didn't
He's
match
got
up.
A great sense of humor. Yeah.
It didn't match the other ones you're talking about, though, in terms of the aesthetics. It was small and it was cramped. Yeah. All right, so what? Let's just say Balthazar number one.
Balthazar's number one. Balthazar's number one ever of any restaurant, I think. But then if
that's off the table. Who are you drafting second?
In the tavern, baby.
I agree.
It's hard to get into, but it's phenomenal. The service is incredible. The room is awesome.
Huge fan of Minetta Tavern as a winter restaurant. Love it. Mm-hmm. It's a great reddish warm room, leather banquettes. You can get some bone marrow on crusty bread. The souffle is banging.
You have.
I'm a big Minetta fan, and it is expensive as shit. But you're still gonna drink like 2 martinis.
It's a birthday spot.
Yeah, I'm all in on Minetta number 2.
Yeah, number 3, Pastis. The new Pastis is nice, man. It's a number 3 out of his empire. The menu is what you think, but the room is nice, and I just miss a gathering or like a nightcap spot in that neighborhood after, if you go to openings in Chelsea, and there's no real place to chill. So I've been finding out that like walking down to Pastis, which is close to the Whitney now, is like not the worst of options. It's pretty cool.
I have not been to the new version, and I did not go to the old one, so I'm just gonna defer to your opinion on it.
Yeah, it does the trick.
I am surprised you put it ahead of Odeon, though.
I don't like Odeon.
What the heck?
I think the people are awesome. I love the people who show up there. The bar is hard to like feel comfortable in because the space is awkward. It's very tight, and I think the food is plain at best.
Don't like the food there. The bar I'm okay with. You come in to the left and it's a long bar, and you can sort of wait there to get a drink if you've got a table that's on a reservation or you're waiting to be seated. It's not great for that though. There is a little bit of a barrier in the way that the seats are set up between the bar, so if people are sitting there, you can't quite get in there. But I think the people are too good to detract from Odeon. It's still a weird mix of like finance people, print media people,
artists,
internet media people, artists. It's one of the few places I feel like you can go regularly and be like, oh, there's Jeremy Scott, there's Harvey Keitel, there's Tori Thornton. Like it's a very good people watching place.
Yeah, I just think like there's like I have no Keith McNally like allegiance. So like if people wanted to go to like if someone was like, should we go to Odeon? I'm like, let's just go to Lucien. Like it's a better version of what you want at Odeon. So I don't find, and it's kind of out of the way because there's not many things. Well, Tribeca is coming back as an art place, so maybe it's Odeon time again. But the spinach dip is terrible, and or is that artichoke dip too? The dips are not good, man.
Dips.
It's not hard to make a good dip, in my opinion.
No, and that's another place that I get the burger.
I know. I was there with you a few months ago, and I got the salmon burger, much to your horror. Oh, tuna burger. And I'm just like, if I'm going to pay this kind of money, I'll just try to eat some tuna, I guess. Like, nothing excitement on this menu. We had the spicy wontons that I was like, my great-grandparents are rolling over. But, okay, so number 5 would be the Lucky Strike zone, and it's no longer there, right? Lucky Strike was at the tail end of his empire.
I guess I'd put it there.
Yeah. Like,
I don't know who it's replaced by now. I don't have any feelings about other spots. Does he, like, Morandi? Or Morandi? I think I've been there once, and I don't remember it.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of others that I'm not familiar with. But, yeah, to your original point, it is kind of sad that it's not there. But whatever, he crushed it. It's awesome. 31 years is amazing. 32 is too hard. The dude just recovered from... He was at death's door, and he survived. Do whatever the hell you want, Keith McNally. Like, just close them all up. Live your life, Like, you gave us Lucky Strike for this long, and now we know it didn't really make any money. I hope those employees can land on their feet, but cool. Done.
Exactly. Now, if we're going to talk about that early era, 31 years ago, the basketball was a little different. Might have had someone like Michael Jordan. The god, the boomer icon himself, Michael Jordan. In
Some
those
of you
years,
might not think he's nice. We'll never know.
He was out there bricking up threes.
He was like, David Silver, can you shorten the three-point line for me? Because I'm bricking too many of these regular threes.
Are you prepared for the wave of MJ boomerism that is about to descend upon basketball Twitter and basketball group chats? Are you ready?
Much like the Rona, it has been here longer than we think. So being ready is not the question. It's, do you see it? Have we seen it it's been hibernating. It's been spreading itself and flourishing, and it's only going to show its face in its new form when this fucking documentary comes out.
Well, right, because MJ nostalgia is not exactly like an ancient bacteria that was hidden in a glacier and is now freed by the melting polar caps.
No.
It's been here the whole time. In preparation, I've been looking at some of his 3-point shooting numbers. Just to sort of get ready for this boomer wave. And I got to be honest, I'm a little worried by what I found. So, if you are a frequent listener to the show, you know that the NBA lowered might be the wrong word.
Shortened?
They shortened the 3-point line for 1995,
6, and 7.
96, and 97. So guys were basically shooting from a pop and shot distance for 3 years in the NBA. So all the numbers from those seasons are trash. They don't matter in terms of 3-point shooting. They literally don't matter. Like, you can't look at that and judge anything.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm not arguing. Yeah.
What are you laughing at? Steve Kerr. Oh, he's a 50% 3-point shooter. Sure, why not? Jordan. Oh, yeah, 40%. Yeah, he's incredible from there.
Scottie Pippen. Assassin.
Real sniper. So if you take away those fraudulent seasons, you look at Michael Jordan's career 3-point shooting. He was 343 threes. So he's 343 for 1189, a rate of 28.8% from an adult 3-point line. It's the one for, big boys.
From a varsity length.
Yeah. Not from the shooting into a little Nerf thing in the kiddie pool.
Not AAU stuff.
So I ran those. Yeah, like a real man would do. So I ran those numbers up against who post regulation 3-point line is most similar in terms of that many threes made at that low of a clip. And there's 3 names that come up.
Are they Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and Ray Allen?
They're close. They're Josh Smith, Corey Brewer, and DeMar DeRozan.
Good players, long careers. Josh Smith almost made it to a finals.
Josh Smith, butterfly effect.
2. So
that is a wild list, though. I was so pleased when I found it was those 3. I'm like, there's got to be a few more. This will look like I'm cherry picking, that I'm coming up with a list. I'm like, that's it? It's Josh Smith, Corey Brewer, who ran out of talent, and DeMar DeRozan, who is described as like a bootleg Kobe version of a bootleg Jordan. Yeah. Who knew that DeMar was actually the real version of Jordan?
3 distinctly different prototypes, but the same kind of shooting from 3. Because DeRozan is your Kobe prototype, Jordan prototype, ISO, volume scorer. Josh Smith was more of a 4 with rim protection, and Corey Brewer was kind of like a guard defender, right?
Kind of like sort of 3-and-D prototype almost.
Yeah, for sure. Ran out of talent, but who doesn't? Shout out to Corey Brewer, our god.
So yeah, those are the guys who shot like Michael Jordan on a grown-ass basketball court.
You're going to get yelled at, and the interns are not going to be happy with you because they're going to have to defend you, and it's going to be annoying because people are going to start counting rings, and then you're going to have to bring up Tommy Heinsohn.
Look, MJ was a very, very good player.
Yes.
No, obviously he was like a starter. He can
He
ball.
deserved to make some all-star teams.
He doesn't suck. But
It was
anyway.
Clyde Drexler exhaustion that we had to shift our eyes to Michael Jordan.
If you need some ammunition against the boomer wave of Jordan guys, and you want to bring up his shooting, bear in mind that his 3 good seasons shooting the ball, he might have had like 1 earlier, were with the line moved in.
Yeah,
And a lot of people thought there was a conspiracy at the time that David Stern had moved in the line to help the Bulls and to encourage Michael Jordan to come back. I don't know if that played any role into it or was communicated to him or was even thought of, but that was at least one speculative idea as to why the NBA decided to do that.
And I think, as we discussed in politics, corporations kind of groom certain people for certain roles. And I can't even be mad at David Stern because we have an amazing product in the NBA now because of his vision. And his vision was to manufacture Michael Jordan as a pop icon, a popular celebrity in everybody's universe. And he successfully did that to a degree. And that era of basketball was so complicated because you had teams playing Michael Jordan, playing referees, playing narrative, playing the media. It's like going against Jordan, like certain political candidates that we love, is more than just going against an opponent. It's going against the system. And that system was 6 for 6 when it was in the finals. And I hope this documentary doesn't describe this era in terms of drive, in terms of competitiveness, in terms of all these stories that I personally don't care about. I want to know about Tim Donaghy. What did he do? What did these refs do? Can we go through and sift through the probabilities of all of these results happening? Because I don't quite believe them.
I know Michael Jordan himself has expressed concern that this documentary makes him look like a dick.
Now.
He said, oh, yeah, well, I was mean to, like, Scott Burrell, my teammate, because I just wanted it more. And, like, I wanted to win, and I wanted greatness. I'm like, you know, those are the kind of things that are not necessarily connected. You being a dick to your teammates is not tied to you being one of the greatest basketball players of all time, or them becoming their best. And, oh, I wouldn't ask you to do something that I wouldn't ask of myself. Like, you know, it's all very sort of self-serving mythology, in my opinion. Like, who's to say you couldn't have been far nicer and gotten better results? Like, who the fuck knows?
You're exactly right. And
Thank you.
It's, you don't need to be nice for us to think that you're the best. Like, you were so good. You're misreading the fan room when you say, like, oh, are you guys going to think I'm not a great teammate anymore? Like, oh, we didn't care about that. Actually, we enjoyed the fact that you just wanted it more than your team. Like, Kobe Bryant was infamous for dogging his teammates.
Right. It's like, no, your mythology is based on you being a shithead to your, and an arrogant dick to your teammates. That's what people admire about you.
Exactly. And we've built up a whole story to support that. And now you're saying you care about that? It's like, you don't need to do that. You could just be a jerk.
And we almost hold it against LeBron James.
Right.
Because he seems like a nice teammate.
If Dwight Howard is smiling so much, shouldn't he be winning games? Shouldn't he be crying on the sideline? Like, no.
Michael Jordan would have traded Kyle Kuzma. There's no way he would have let Kyle Kuzma like that Instagram post and come back and not get his ass whipped in practice. Like,
yeah.
Jordan never would allow that. Okay, maybe not, but that doesn't change anything.
Yeah, maybe he'd have as many rings as Casey Jones if he was nicer. The nicest guy, Casey Jones. How can you be mad at someone named Casey Jones?
You can't.
No, it's impossible. Jordan, on the other hand, doesn't sound nice.
Sounds like he's on vacation.
Wonderful hot dog leg vacation.
So, a quick side topic. If you move back the NBA three-point line today to the junior high status line that they
move
use
it forward
in
right.
Jordan's, in Jordan's heyday, what teams would benefit?
This is such a trick question, man.
Sure is.
That's right. My immediate thought would be it would help the teams that weren't created to shoot threes, because it would create value from players who shot mid-range, and it makes their skill set more valuable. But as soon as I say that, I'm not sure, so tear me down.
I don't really have a distinct opinion on it because, to your point, hypothetically, teams like Denver, San Antonio, and Portland take a lot of long twos, and they knock them down at a higher rate than most other teams. So by this logic, if they were taking a bunch of long twos that would now become threes at a high rate, that would really improve their offense by giving them added points per game. That's one very easy way of looking at it. But I don't think it has the right amount of nuance because they are settling for those long twos, not because they are generating them. They are taking those shots because defenses allow them.
Yes.
So if defenses shifted to take away what would now become threes, they wouldn't be able to get them or make them at the rate they currently are. So my general opinion is that the same teams who benefit from being excellent shooting teams now would benefit from the line moving in. I mean, yes, you might have players like Joel Embiid, who is a better long two maker than a 3-point shooter. Aldridge, right, there are examples of guys like Aldridge would benefit a lot, and that would help the Spurs. But I think it's more about like individual players just being able to knock down that shot versus systems, because systems and the shots that they create and the shots that their defenses allow would just be changed. They would be altered because of this rule change.
I agree, and I still think Stern manufactured the Bulls' performance in a way by shortening the line because it really favors guards, and a team, let's say, like the Knicks at the time, who were before they were relegated, but to be fair, before the NBA began. Really, their focal point was a big man, a protector, and a free throw shooter in Patrick Ewing, who's being maligned these days, and that's another topic. But it doesn't, shortening the 3-point line doesn't necessarily help the Knicks as much as it helps a guard-focused team like the Bulls.
And also, at that era, teams weren't as good at shooting across the roster, and they didn't take nearly as many shots. So just turning Jordan and Pippen from bad shooters into good shooters,
right?
that was a lot bigger of a deal than just say, okay,
John
now
Starks has an advantage.
Right, like now
Derek
everybody
Harper.
can make this shot. It specifically helped the two stars on like the best team in the NBA.
It wasn't an equal playing field change of rules. It favored exactly who David Stern wanted to win the championship. And it wasn't a 100% probability, but it raised their chances of winning quite a bit. Another debate would be if we move the line even farther back. I know the dimensions of the court kind of suffer at the corners, but if we move the arc back a little bit, what kind of team would that help?
Yeah, I generally think it helps, again, the teams who are best at spacing the floor. Not necessarily the best at shooting, but the best at spacing the floor. And I think there's a little bit of a difference there.
Mm-hmm.
Where the Rockets, because they have James Harden, would benefit. Because they would just make sure that they get guys who are able to make that further three. And then have defenders even further away. And they've actually used that strategy at certain times, putting Ryan Anderson or Eric Gordon 3 or 4 feet behind the current NBA line just to give another step of distance between James Harden and the first pass away. Mm-hmm. So I think you have that kind of impact would be immediate. Teams who have enough good shooters to stick in those locations and had a primary ball handler that was like a LeBron or a Doncic or a Harden or a Westbrook, guys who can destroy someone one-on-one would immediately have a big offensive advantage.
Yeah, it helps Trae Young, right?
Oh, he'd be ridiculous.
Does it make for a better game?
If you think a better game is bringing back the mid-range, I don't think it does that. Mm-hmm. I think it takes the elements of the game that are annoying to people now, spacing the floor out, spot-ups, iso ball, and would actually encourage that even more.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm curious.
And it would hurt the post.
Yes. But just the dimensions of the American court, you would have to keep the corners the same distance because there's no space there anymore unless you widen it for Euro dimensions. So it would create an importance in the corners of an offense and defense. So I think it could adjust itself to an exciting game if teams valued good shots. And we're definitely going to see like the New Yorks try to like mid-range teams to death and enforce that 15-foot zone, but I think it has the possibility of creating a faster, wider game.
I just don't think we're going to go away from taking threes because we know how powerful of an impact they have on an offense. And if we're going to say, well, look, we're moving this a few feet back, so, your center who you've trained to shoot threes, he can't make those anymore. You're like, okay, cool, I'm not going to play him then. Like, let's just not do that. Let's if another team is going to have a center who can't shoot, we're going to just put another shooter on the floor, and we're all going to do what the Rockets are doing.
Yeah,
because if you can't put elite shooters around your big man, we'll just double the shit out of them. Oh, you want to give the ball to your big guy in the post, and your shooters are now really far away? Cool. We're just going to run defenders at them all the time. That little distance that's added of help I don't think that really matters when it comes to doubling the post. I don't know. I just think it's like the COVID, right? That it's the solution that doesn't actually turn things back to how you want them to be. It's an accelerant.
It's an accelerant, yeah. There's an interesting debate going on. Or
if you want to bring back a game that's reminiscent of the 90s, move the line in.
Yeah, I mean, there's a debate going on in local.
I'm saying make the mid range worth the same as a three, and then you'll see more mid range jumpers.
I
don't know.
I'm waiting. Yeah, I mean, there's a debate going on in New York because your boy Charles Oakley has come out after Patrick Ewing a little bit this week, and he's accusing Patrick Ewing of not wanting it enough, basically, but basically taking selfish shots that maybe ruin the Knicks' chances at beating a team like the Bulls. And I believe Oakley's coming out with this because the Bulls are re-entering our periphery.
His best friend is Michael Jordan.
Yep, that definitely is.
And he was his teammate.
Well. Yes, they were on the Bulls together. And I've never been a huge Charles Oakley Knicks guy, but I did like him quite a bit. And him being a super salty boomer is awesome, and I love this kind of debate. And what he was saying, to your point about this kind of behavior guarding, double teaming big men is not dependent on necessarily how do I phrase this? Charles Oakley accused Ewing for taking shots when he was double and triple teamed. And what shooters does Ewing have to pass to? Because Starks was okay, Derek Harper was fine, and then he had Charles Oakley and Anthony Mason, who were true forwards to the truest sense of the 90s. And Patrick Ewing was an excellent player, and we talked about this yesterday, right? If your usage guys kind of suffer this fate because it's a catch-22, you want them to take the important shot, but everyone knows they're going to take that shot, so optically it looks like they're guarded.
Well, this is also the gift of hindsight, because now we can go back and watch those games and say, you know what, after watching modern basketball, maybe just force-feeding the ball into the paint like it's a duck liver and watching them hoist up hook shots and go into triple teams is bad offense. But back then, no one said that. Back then, we all agreed. That was how you won. Oh, you get your big dude, you put him in the post, you give him the ball, and he goes to work. And you look at the leading scorers in the league at that era. It was all twos who were not really ball handlers, just shooters, scorers. Guys like Mitch Richmond or Glenn Rice or Reggie Miller. And everyone else was a big dude. Vin Bakers and Tim Duncans and David Robinsons, guys who shot short jumpers and scored in the post and went to the foul line. That was how the game was played.
Yep.
So to look back and say, we had some strategic errors in the way we tried to score the basketball. Yeah, no shit, Charles. It's true. But also, look at yourself. Because
Look at yourself, Charles.
take a look in the mirror.
Yeah.
No, but for real, when you want to look at the guys in the NBA who never shot, who never scored, and played a lot of minutes, it was like Charles Oakley was one of those guys. He'd play 30 minutes a game and score 7, 8, 9 points. The only guys who scored as few points in as many minutes as him were useless bums like Steve Nash early in his career. Facts.
Yeah.
Facts. No one scored less than Steve Nash in his early years in his career. 31 minutes a game, scoring 7 points. Wild shit.
We're about to enter.
Sorry. They did it again. They did another Iverson at Nash thing, and both declared that they would draft Nash over Iverson.
Don't take the bait, man. Be like the interns. Gen X tranquility.
It's the only bait I take.
Oh, that's the only bait.
I don't take any other bait. That's the only bait I take.
Okay. But
sorry, I just wanted to bring that up about Nash. 7 points a game in 31 minutes.
But speaking about boomer bait, we're about to enter the portion of our programming that's going to be Charles Oakley, Michael Jordan, Spike Lee, Wilbon, pardon the interruption. We're entering that portion of our year, and it's going to be hilarious to see this play out on Twitter, where you're going to have all these boomers kind of relitigate the best moments of the 90s, and it's just going to feel really surreal. I think that we're going to hear Derek Harper came out today and talked smack about Ewing. What? Okay, now we're listening to Derek Harper talking about the 3 championships the Knicks won for the 3 players that Starks dunked over against the Bulls. What are we doing? This is such
Luke
a
Longley annihilates Will Perdue on Instagram Live.
It's wild. And the closest thing to 2020 that we have of this kind of thinking is okay, Jordan or Kobe, pick one. I'm oh, you can't put him in the same conversation. And rest in peace, Kobe. He's an ambassador and person we're gonna miss for such a long time, but forever. But you can't put him in the same discussion as the greats.
Jed Bushler Hive.
Steve Kerr, daggers. We're entering this part of the programming, man.
Bill Cartwright, eyeball emoji.
Yet no one will talk about Horace Grant. That'll just get lost in it a bit. Your boy Tom Chambers is going to make a comeback. Just watch. Your favorite player in the world, Tom Chambers.
Free Craig Hodges, political prisoner.
Is he?
I mean, that's why they wouldn't let him into the 3-point contest, right? Because of his outspoken views.
Yeah. Free Craig Hodges, political prisoner.
Well, yeah, so that's on the horizon. A better news, and one that goes distinctly against these boomer-ass ideas, is that today it was announced. I mean, that's how fast we pod. It's daily, as you might be aware. But Jalen Green, who is a 5-star recruit, potentially the number 1 pick in next year's draft, not the one coming up.
Potentially, if he was available, might go number 1 this year too.
You know more about that off of your big board, but he is a special prospect, one of the best schoolboy prospects in the land, and he is going into the G League through what is called a professional pathway, and they're going to be paying him about $500,000, which is a huge increase over the salary that was allowed for this kind of program in the past, and 25 times more than the average G Leaguer makes, or something in that category.
$500K, right?
$500K plus. So I don't know exactly what the details are. He'll have a personal development program in which he doesn't have to play all the games or travel with the team all the time, but he is incentivized, and there are benefits for him to participate as much as possible. But this is a real coup for the G League, who is helmed by former NBA All-Star Sharif Abdul-Rahim. I think he made 1 All-Star game.
Hawks legend.
I think he did. And they are really attempting to step on the NCAA's neck here. This is very much taking the biggest, most marquee talent that would have entered college basketball and ushering him directly into an NBA pipeline. Comment.
I wasn't sure when we were done going off. You respect the king's space, but isn't it amazing how sometimes in life you do the most logical thing and it's the best solution? Being like, I feel terrible. I'm gonna go drink some water. I guess I'm like, oh, I feel better. It's like, oh, that makes sense. And when we heard this news today, I was like, this makes so much sense. Why didn't we do this 30 years ago? And we've seen other players like LaMelo Ball go to Australia to hone their craft, and keep them here, keep them in front of us, keep them in the NBA vision, and pay them more, because this thing makes money and they deserve to make that money. This makes all the sense in the world, and I have no love for the NCAA concept, so let's get rid of it entirely, and this is a step towards that direction.
I agree. This seems to be just a sort of shot across the bow, if you will. It's not a system going forward where you're saying, oh, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to put all these guys into this program for a year, and then they'll go into the NBA. Like, this seems to be like a stopgap measure, something to paper over the fact that the NBA has about had it with the NCAA, and saying, you know what, the benefit of guys playing in college, it might be real, but if we're going to lose kids like who don't want to play in college and are going to go overseas and be in Australia or be in Greece or be in China or be in Israel, that, like, screw that. Why are we sending over our number one prospects to waste a year in another country, not play, and then come in to the United States, the NBA, with no one having seen them play, with no fans, with no college background, and with like no hype about them because we haven't seen them. And they're like, that's not going to happen anymore. We need them here so we can watch them in America and we can watch them play, or we're just going to have to bring them into the NBA. You know what I'm saying? Like, this doesn't feel like, it's going to be the stepping stone for prospects for full, like a long term. This just seems like we're going to allow people to draft out of high school again, but we're going to pretend like it's gradual. Am I wrong on that?
No. I mean, I'm still really angry at the NBA for this, because they don't change the rules if it's like a number 5 prospect. This is the number 1 prospect, so they're kind of like looking at.
But they're not changing the rules, because they're apparently trying to get this guy who's a number 13 prospect too. He might get less money. I don't know how this works.
The floodgates are open now, but yeah, it took someone like a LeBron-ish person to change a paradigm, right? And it wasn't the NCAA's sole rule to have an age limit. The NBA created the age limit. So they're not innocent here. They've created this system that we're applauding them for getting out of. This is a very Trumpian thing, like creating a problem and then admitting that it's a problem and taking credit for that. So no love to the NBA here. And
as recently as a couple years ago, the NBA, Adam Silver, if I remember correctly, had speculated publicly about, well, it might have to be 2 years in college. Like, they have not been consistent on this. And to your point, it is their rule. Yeah. The NBA could say, dude, you can join at 16. We don't care.
Yeah.
They're clearly working with college basketball, and they have a vested interest in ensuring that players get a little seasoning and coaching before it's time for them to like pick them and invest in them and pay them and give them 4-year contracts and things like that. But I think people going overseas has changed the way they view that.
Yes, they're losing money. And now that Maury has lost them a ton of money in China, I think they see this prospect maybe getting, not generating a profit for them as something that they have to protect. And, the 4 big sports all have, I think, each one of them has a critical issue moving forward. No sin bin, but baseball is about player personality and empowerment and identity. NFL and NHL have a real brain issue going on that they have to take care of, which is the most serious of all of them. And the NBA has a labor issue. And I think even moving a step into the right direction is a good idea for the NBA.
Right. The NBA has a couple labor issues. Mm-hmm. You have a disconnect between what ownership wants and what fans seem to want and player mobility. Mm-hmm. You know, they have a couple fronts here that they have to address. And, you know, they have shown the willingness to have a lockout and to seize more money from players. I would not be surprised if the NBA tries to force some changes, as we've seen with like tampering and things like that, to try to curtail player movement. This, of course, with Jalen Green and the G League and the pathway to the NBA, that's a different thing. Mm-hmm. But they are all sort of connected, right? Because the NBA is like, I don't like this idea of guys who could be stars playing in Australia. I just don't like it. They should be under our umbrella. They should be playing for a G League team. They should be on ESPN. We should be seeing them. Why are we letting them go play and bring their star power and their reputation to the other side of the planet when we have a basketball league right here?
And the NCAA is not incentive enough for a talented player like Green or LaMelo Ball to commit. And if I was a young man and be like, I'm curious about Australia, you're going to pay me $125,000? Okay, I'll take that instead of being like sitting on the bench in Louisiana, LSU, you know, like I don't think these kids care about the university culture as much as we used to in the 90s or 80s.
It's also a shifting perception. Everyone now thinks that college athletes deserve to be paid. It's not a fringe opinion.
Yeah, these kids know what's up. Come on, they're smarter than all of us. They're the ones running the show, right?
And also, if you're the NBA, like, all right, the jig is kind of up here when it comes to these college bags and the sneaker companies. All right, that was just a special on HBO. There was an FBI crackdown. Like, all right, let's get serious. We know they have to make money. Those avenues may be closed off temporarily, going through college and through AAU and whatever fixers and bagmen were involved in that entire industry. What about this? $500,000 a year. Play in the G League.
And something that's not lost is...
Do you think that Ayton would have gone to Arizona? No, Ayton would have gone and played in this program.
Yeah, and I think what we shouldn't lose sight of is I think the business model of everybody's is changing on the fly. And, we have governors in California and New York saying they don't expect to allow large gatherings until 2022, pending a vaccine. And this changes the whole dynamic of something like the NBA. And I think them extending the product to the G League in this way is delightful for us because it's growing the universe of the NBA. It's expanding it geometrically, right? So instead of having these very wonderful, talented young players on the other side of the earth with a different time zone, we get to watch them here, and the NBA might be saying or thinking that they have to reconstruct their product to fit a new model that we don't even know what looks like.
Also true. I just think that the writing is on the wall, and they're going to have to let guys come from college. So the NBA is setting up a system where they're like, maybe we can pay them. We can get the benefit of not having to commit to them for a year.
Yeah.
So we eliminate some of the Kwame Browns and the Corleone, also Brown? Corleone? Yeah, I think it was Corleone, whatever his name was. Those guys who flamed out as draft picks. And maybe we won't have those kind of issues as much. But we'll still get the same kind of data. We'll still get the same kind of experience. But also, maybe they're just going to start drafting high schoolers again.
I mean, this is a good year for it because two players going into the Hall of Fame skipped college, Kobe and Garnett, right? And we view them as national treasures. and they survived fine without going. And I believe some players aren't ready, and a smart team would invest in that risk if they saw potential. And sometimes it doesn't work, like you said, but also sometimes it does work.
See, I think they cloak their concern as like, oh well, Corleone Young, he wasn't ready for this. No, he just made a bad pick.
Yeah, right.
Like. Oh,
it's culture.
Like,
it's a culture debate.
It's about the player. The player wasn't ready. Like bullshit. Like no, you guys just picked the wrong guy.
Right.
Because
Garnett was the right guy.
Garnett was the right guy. Kobe was the right guy. LeBron was the right guy.
Dwight Howard was the right guy.
Come on.
Yeah, it's a case by case thing, and
it's really them saying, well, if we had seen Corleone Young play a little bit more, maybe we wouldn't have drafted him.
And
his high school stuff wasn't enough. We needed him against better talent, so that it's better for him to play against college guys. If he played against Wichita State, we would have known that he was a scrub.
Yeah, and this labor issue extends beyond that. Let's say you have to protect the Corleone Young. There should be a system in which he might flame out on the court, but you protect him financially. Or you just take care of your employees, man. Like, you make it work for them, and I think that's going to happen across America a little. I hope it doesn't accelerate away from that, which it could. But right, so if we start this program with Green, and let's say a handful of these players are willing to take a chance, I assume Silver would protect them in some way.
As far as I understand, this program has existed since 2018, but I'm not sure how much it was utilized, but specifically this one was where they jacked up the rate to make it more than playing in Australia. Yeah,
because Australia maxes out at 125, I believe. Is that right? For a rookie deal?
I think so. Or it might have been this program maxed out at 125 in the U.S. Either way,
that's right.
Less gruel.
Always less gruel. I don't know what you're doing if you're looking for more gruel. To be honest.
No. Always less.
Always less.
Cookies.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.